parts of speech. There are 8 parts of speech. There are nouns, verbs, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. A noun is a word that names, a person, like boy or girl, or Jack or Jill. A place, like the mountains, the country. A thing, like a computer or an iPod. Or an idea. An idea would be something like love. It's not a person. It's not a place because you can't go there. It's not really a thing. You can't reach out and touch it, but you can hold a conversation about it. So that would be an idea. So love is an idea. Science is an idea. Science really isn't something you can reach out and touch, so it's not a thing. It's not a place. You can't go there. You can go to science class, but you can't go to science, and certainly not a person. So science could be an idea. Types of nouns. We have common nouns, and those are general names of persons, places, things, or idea, like girl, town, chair, tree, friendship, love. Those are all examples of common nouns. Proper nouns would be specific names of persons, places, things, or ideas, like Ohio, John, Pacific Ocean, Cambridge Middle School, English. And notice those are all capitalized. They are proper nouns, specific names. Possessive nouns would be nouns that show ownership, like Andy's house, Ron's trumpet, Ruby's book. And Andy owns that house, Ron owns that trumpet, Ruby owns that book. So those show ownership. Compound nouns are nouns that are made up of 2 or more nouns, and usually we wouldn't recognize those items without using both of them, like rocking chair. It's a specific type of chair, so we put those together and make that compound noun, rocking chair. Or parking lot, night light, toothpaste. And here are the kinds of nouns and some examples. We have common nouns, like boy or girl. Proper nouns would be like John or Mary. Singular nouns meaning one, single, boy and girl. Plural nouns meaning more than one, so we have to add that S, boys and girls. Singular possessive meaning one boy owns it or one girl owns it, so we have apostrophe S. For plural possessive, we have more than one boy or more than one girl, so that we have to put that apostrophe after the S. The pronoun is a word used in place of one or more nouns. It may stand for a person, place, thing, or idea. You know, we don't really talk this way. Joe went to the store. Joe bought some spaghetti. Joe fixed spaghetti for his family. We don't talk that way, so we have to have pronouns that would replace that Joe. So we can say he instead of repeating that word Joe over and over and over. And these are all the pronouns. We have personal pronouns like I, me, mine, you, yours, she, it, we, our, they, them, myself, yourself. We have indefinite pronouns like anybody, each, either, none, or someone. Demonstrative pronouns like this, that, these, or those. And interrogative, meaning the question there, who, whom, what, which, or whose. Those are all different types of pronouns. An antecedent is the word the pronoun stands for or is referring back to. Like in this sentence, ask Dan if he has homework. We have the pronoun he, and then we have to ask ourselves, who is he? Well, obviously in this sentence, Dan is the he, so Dan is the antecedent that he stands for. Below is a chart that lists singular pronouns and plural pronouns for first, second, and third persons. You may have been asked before to write a story using first person or third person, typically not second person, but there is a second person. And notice if you look at second person, they're all some form of you. First person would be that you are in the story. So you would use words like I, me, my, mine, we, us, our, ours. If you're third person, if you're writing in third person, you're not in the story, so you'd use things like he, him, his, her, hers, it, its, they, them, their, or theirs. The adjective modifies or describes a noun or a pronoun. They answer several questions. One question that an adjective will answer is which. Did you lose your address book? In this sentence, which book did you lose? Address. So address is describing which book. What kind? Is that a wool sweater? Wool describes what kind of sweater. Just give me 5 minutes answers how many. Most of the time when you have a number, you're going to have an adjective. So how many minutes? 5. Notice all of them are describing book, sweater, minutes. All of those are nouns. The verb. A verb is a word that expresses action or otherwise helps to make a statement. We have action verbs and we have linking verbs, or you may have heard them called state of being verbs. Every sentence must have a verb. Kinds of verbs. We have action verbs. Action verbs express mental or physical action. In this sentence, he rode the horse to victory. He is able to ride a horse. So rode in this sentence is an action he can do. So that would be an action verb. Henry talked to the owner. Henry can talk. That's an action that Henry can do. Jenna moved the book to her desk. That's an action Jenna can do. Linking verbs make a statement by connecting the subject with a word that describes it or explains it a little more. So in this sentence below, Jerry is a lawyer. Our subject is Jerry, and there is some information that explains a little bit more about Jerry, and that's that he's a lawyer. So you can't do that, so it's not an action, but it does link Jerry with lawyer, as in this sentence. Mrs. Carpenter is a teacher. Well, Mrs. Carpenter is being linked with a little bit more information that she's a teacher. So is connects Mrs. Carpenter with an explanation of who she is, a teacher. Mary Alice had a pony, again, explaining a little bit more stuff that we need to know about Mary Alice. So we've got Mary Alice, and we know that she has a pony, and the word that connects it is had. And here's a chart of linking verbs. When I was in school, we had to memorize these. You don't have to memorize them, but it would be a good idea for you to review this video when you are completing your project. And notice there are several that go together. And if you have more than one verb, the ones in front of the main verb or the last verb in the phrase would be helping verbs. We're going to get to that in a second. Tricky verbs. We have the word looks in both of the sentences below. One of these is an action verb and one of these is a linking verb. So this is why they're tricky. Which one is which, do you think? We have Mrs. Carpenter looks like a teacher. Mary Alice looks at a teacher. Well, in the first sentence, Mrs. Carpenter is not using her eyes for the looks. So looks actually is connecting or linking something about Mrs. Carpenter, and that's that she's like a teacher. So looks connects Mrs. Carpenter to a teacher, so that means that that's a linking verb. In the second sentence, Mary Alice looks at a teacher. Mary Alice is using her eyes, so that is actually an action verb in that sentence. So you really have to look. Just because they're not always, or that they're usually an action verb, doesn't mean that they can't possibly be a linking verb. Helping verbs, help, linking, or action verbs. They usually show a tense in there, like a past or present tense. He has been sick. If we took out has, You could have he been sick. We don't really talk that way. So helping verbs help in some way. Has is helping been in this sentence, and we know that we can't been, so it was a linking verb. Has is helping the linking verb been. And here is a chart of helping verbs, and you probably will see that some of these were on your linking verb chart as well. And if they, like I said, if they are with another verb and they're in front of another verb, then that would make them a helping verb. That horse wants to follow us. Some examples: she can speak Spanish. Can is helping speak in that sentence. If we take it out, she speaks Spanish, wouldn't sound right. So can is a helping verb in there. The baby has been named Taylor. If we take out has been, we have the baby named Taylor, and that's an incomplete sentence. In a question like this, did you hear the bell? Sometimes it's easier for us to rearrange it into a statement. If we had you did hear the bell, you'd probably see it quicker that did is helping here. And this last one, a lot of times they'll stick an adverb between the verbs. So we have Ken does not have a new car. Does is helping the verb have. Not is an adverb. So you just need to remember that not is not a verb. Never is never a verb. Those are always going to be adverbs. The adverb modifies or describes a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. If you remember back to the adjective, adjectives describe also, but they describe nouns or pronouns. If you can remember that adjectives describe nouns or pronouns, adverbs are the only other describing word, so they describe everything else. So if it's describing a person, place, or thing, you've got an adjective. If it's describing something else, you've got an adverb. And it answers these questions. How? How did he run? Quickly. When? She left yesterday. When did she leave? Yesterday. Where? We went there. Where did we go? There. And to what degree or how much? It was too hot. How hot was it? Too hot. Some more adverbs. How? Again, that same question. The sprinter ran swiftly. How did the sprinter run? Swiftly. And notice here, ly. A lot of times, adverbs will end with ly. Not always, but a lot of times. When? We'll eat the apples later. When will we eat the apples? Later. How often? Dad occasionally jogs with our neighbor. How often does Dad jog? Occasionally. Where? Put the boxes there. Where should we put the boxes? There. Let's look at a few more adverbs, make sure we get this. English can be a fairly difficult language to learn. Is there anything answering one of those questions? Where, when, how, or how much? Fairly also ends in ly. It's describing difficult in this sentence. I studied incredibly hard for the test. Anything that tells you how I studied, when I studied, and we have incredibly describing how hard. People hurried excitedly to the festival. Excitedly describes how people hurried. We often study together. How do we study? Often. Elephants never forget anything. Anything that tells you when elephants forget, how elephants forget. And we have never describing how they forget or when they forget. Sherry totally ignored the tardy bell. Totally is describing how Sherry ignored. A dog knows instinctively when there is trouble. Instinctively describes how a dog knows. The preposition. A preposition is a word that shows a relationship between a noun or a pronoun and another word in the sentence. The word or word group that the preposition introduces is its object. Now that's a mouthful right there. So I'm going to look at a few of these here in a second with you. But here is an example of a sentence that contains actually 3 prepositions. So let's look at this first slide. Prepositions will sometimes answer where and when. If we have this sentence, the firefighter climbed up the tree, the first thing that I do is identify the subject and the verb so that I can find the preposition. And I ask myself, is there anything that tells you where and when according to the subject and the verb? So if we have firefighter, that's a subject. That's what this sentence is about. Is there anything the firefighter did? He climbed. So I know this is subject, this is verb. So is there anything that tells you where or when the firefighter climbed? And we have the word up. Up is a preposition in this sentence. It tells you where the firefighter climbed. The entire phrase that begins with the preposition and ends with the first noun or pronoun is called the prepositional phrase. So let's look at that same sentence. You already told me up was the preposition, but the whole phrase that tells you where is up the ladder. Where did the firefighter climb? Up the ladder. That's called the prepositional phrase. Here's another example. You can press those leaves under glass. Where can you press the leaves? Under glass. Prepositional phrases can have more than one object, like her telegram to Nina and Ralph brought good news. It's to Nina and Ralph, so that's more than one object. And they can have modifiers. You can stick adjectives in there. It happened during the last exam. Last is describing what kind of examination this was. The object of the preposition, if we look back at this same sentence again, you already told me the preposition is, the prepositional phrase was up the ladder. You told me the preposition is up. So we need to figure out the object of the preposition. It's the first noun in the phrase that you come to. It also answers a lot of the times what or who. So the firefighter climbed up the ladder. Up the what or up the who is how you should say that, and it's up the ladder. So what did the firefighter climb up? The ladder. That's your object of your preposition. The child ran to his mother. Well, the subject of this is child. The verb is ran. So I'm going to ask myself anything that tells you where or when the child ran. Well, he ran to his mother. That's my preposition. The first word in that phrase is my preposition. And then what or who did this child run to? His mother. So that's your object of the preposition. And here are some common prepositions, and when I was in school I had to memorize these. You don't have to memorize them, but again, this is something that you might want to review when you are doing your project, and you can pause on the screen so that you get to see them all. And notice they're kind of location type words. So that's why they sometimes will answer those questions, where and when. All right, the conjunction. You're almost done. A conjunction is a word that joins words or a group of words. And, but, and or are your 3 most common ones. They join things in sentences. We also could have either, neither, nor, yet, so, but. They're all conjunctions joining words. It's like in these sentences. Jenna and Cameron love to shop. Ian is joining Jenna and Cameron. Without it, we'd like put those 2 names together without something to join them. Your dad or I will pick you up today, or is joining dad and I. The interjection is an exclamatory word that expresses emotion. Usually you exclaim it like, goodness, what a cute baby. Goodness is the interjection in this sentence. In fact, if you notice, it is standing alone before the sentence with an exclamation point after it. Wow, look at that sunset. Again, an exclamatory word with an exclamation point. Wow is our interjection in that sentence. Sometimes you'll see them separated by commas as well. Like oh might have a comma after it instead of an exclamation point. I can't believe it. We're done with the parts of speech. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, you can get started on your project. You can always come back to Edmodo and view this video again because it will be here as needed. Good luck.